In the stillness of night, Lucia awoke, her limbs heavy with exhaustion from their earlier intimacy. Lying beside Duke Hugo, now asleep, the reality of her marriage settled around her. It brought a quiet sense of security, though the memory of their closeness still lingered, making her cheeks warm. Thirsty, she tried to stand, but her legs faltered, and she collapsed to the floor with a soft thud. The soreness in her body reminded her of the unfamiliar strain. As she sat dazed, she noticed she was dry and dressed, a clear contrast to how she had fallen asleep. "So this is married life?" she wondered, wincing. No book had warned her about this part. She knew it wasn't everything, but if asked, she'd admit she liked it, though she wasn't sure she could go through it again so soon. She felt both embarrassed and oddly curious, still trying to understand this part of herself. She wondered if everyone experienced this, or if she was the only one left confused about what people found enjoyable in it. Unaware that Duke Hugo was now awake, she remained lost in thought. He quietly approached, kneeling beside her. Startled, she glanced back to see the empty bed. "Yes, it's your husband," he said, easing her confusion with quiet humor. She hesitated at the word, still adjusting to its meaning. He teased her gently for falling off such a large bed, but she corrected him, explaining her thirst and the weakness in her legs. Without comment, he carried her to the table and handed her a glass of water. "Don't break it this time," he joked, a small smile on his face. Lucia flushed. His teasing felt unfair, though she knew he meant no harm. She drank the water quietly, grateful, and allowed herself to be carried back to bed. As he laid her down, she reached out, her fingertips brushing his face. She apologized softly, noting his tangled hair, unaware of how inviting she looked in that moment. His restraint gave way, and he leaned down to kiss her. Slow, familiar, and his hands moved over her body again. She felt the connection settle in her chest, both new and grounding. A soft sound escaped her lips before she fully understood what was happening. Then came a sharp ache in her chest. Lucia tensed. Hugo noticed her breathing change and paused. "Does it hurt?" he asked, watching her closely. Her eyes watered as she nodded, face burning in shame. "We'll have a doctor look at you in the morning," he said at once. "No, I'm all right," she replied, unsure how to explain the pain. Even so, Hugo decided they would delay their journey north. "A few days won't make a difference," he said with finality. "Get some sleep." Lucia was surprised by his gentleness as he tucked her in. She hesitated, then asked if he planned to return to the capital afterward. He gave no direct answer at first, but eventually admitted he didn't know when he'd be back. There were too many obligations waiting. "Is that okay?" he asked. She looked at him, unsure. "Did the Crown Prince approve your trip?" He paused, startled. That she knew of his connection to the prince unsettled him. "Not willingly," he admitted, brushing off the rest. Lucia asked if he ever regretted the choices he made. "No," he said. "Regret doesn't change what's already been done." His certainty made her clench her fist beneath the blanket. She admired it, but something in her quietly wondered what he might leave behind so easily, without ever looking back. As the conversation stretched toward dawn, he stood. "I'll leave so you can sleep," he said. Lucia, half asleep, murmured, "Aren't you going to sleep more, Your Excellency?" "I usually wake up around now." "And don't call me that," he replied. "I'm not used to it," she admitted. "I'll try." "Vivian, I think you should also practice not flinching when I say your name," he said lightly. She frowned. "It doesn't feel like me. That name feels like a stranger." "I still need to call you something." "Can't you call me something else?" she asked. Half serious, he offered teasing alternatives. "Wife, honey, darling, my love, sweetie, my sunshine," each one drawing a deeper blush. "Which do you prefer?" She buried her face. "My name is fine. I like it too," he said simply, then sat beside her. Lucia studied him. He really is a playboy, she thought. She had once imagined he'd be faithful after marriage, but now she wasn't so sure. "Let's end the conversation. You need sleep," he said, patting her lightly. "One more thing." He gave her a look. She laughed softly, startled by his mock frustration. "What now?" he sighed, caressing her hair. "How many hours of sleep do you get?" 3 or 4. That's enough." "I'd die if I slept that little," she whispered. "No one asked you to," he said gently. "Just sleep." Lucia apologized softly, her tone unexpectedly flirtatious. Hugo paused, surprised, as she drifted off. Watching her sleep, he leaned forward and kissed her cheek. "You didn't bother me at all," he whispered. He sat quietly for a while, watching her. There was something about her, maybe because she'd lived outside the palace, or because her eyes held no calculation. But like any man, he wondered how long it would last. A knock broke the quiet. Fabian entered with a telegram. Hugo read it silently, his face tightening. So now there really is trouble in the north, he thought bitterly. I should have been more careful what I wished for. To think they'd be so careless, he muttered aloud. Have I not treated them fairly? Fabian remained quiet. Hugo gave instructions. Send word that I'm coming. I'll visit the surrounding lands too. Mounting his horse, he gave Jerome orders to stay behind and look after Lucia, and to call a female doctor if she asked. Jerome nodded, surprised by the unusual request. As the Duke rode off, Jerome murmured, "The Lady of Taran," the title still foreign on his tongue. Roy stormed through the halls of the Taran residence, irritation etched into every step. He can't do this, he muttered under his breath as he pushed open the guardroom door. Why aren't you with the Crown Prince? One of the guards asked. Roy waved the question off. Who cares? I haven't agreed to that yet. The words stirred a memory from just days before. I've left a trusted guard with the Crown Prince, Duke Hugo had said, handing over a scroll. Roy Croton, you'll carry out the assignment. Roy had protested immediately. No. You will, the Duke had answered without pause. I want to go too. Why should I be the only one left behind? You're staying, the Duke had said simply. I want to go too. Roy's voice had risen, more like a boy denied a treat than a soldier refusing orders. Hugo hadn't argued. He had simply hit him, clean, swift, enough to stop the outburst. Back in the present, Dean Hiva, another of Hugo's knights, sighed. The Duke's given his orders. You should return. Roy wasn't convinced. There's trouble in the north. I'll miss everything. Trouble? Dean scoffed. You call that fun? Better than trailing the Crown Prince all day, Roy said. Dean tried to reason with him. If you follow him without permission and he catches you, it won't end well. Roy only laughed. He won't kill me. Maybe a beating. Dean frowned. You always challenge him like that. You're lucky he hasn't tossed you aside. I just don't want to be left out, Roy muttered. Dean shrugged. I'm escorting the Lady North. Oh, right. He got married, Roy said, rubbing the back of his neck. I'm not good with noblewomen. Dean chuckled. You'll be fine. You've met her? Not exactly, but I've got a feeling. Dean stared at him. Well, I'll trust your hunch. He trailed off suddenly, his expression shifting as he spotted someone behind Roy. Roy, unaware, continued speaking. Jerome's terrifying sometimes, more than the Duke. Thank you for saying that, Jerome said from behind, his voice calm but sharp. Roy flinched. Dean coughed and quickly made his exit. Sir Roy Croton, Jerome addressed, his tone unreadable. Screams echoed faintly in the distance. Later that day, Lucia woke again, her body still sore. She looked toward the window, guessing the time had passed well into the afternoon. A soft knock came. Her handmaiden entered upon permission. Would you like breakfast, my lady? Lucia nodded. Something light. I'll eat in bed. As you wish, the maid said with a bow, then added, Sir Jerome would like to speak with you afterward. Lucia paused. Where's the Duke? He departed for the north this morning. Lucia's expression didn't change, but something inside her shifted. She hadn't expected him to be gone already. When Jerome arrived, he greeted her with a respectful nod. How are you feeling? Lucia sat up carefully. Better. The master asked that you call for a doctor if needed, Jerome said. He was concerned. I'm fine, she answered quickly. The Duke left after receiving a telegram from the north. We plan to leave tomorrow. There's no rush, he said, so we can wait until you're ready. Lucia shook her head. Let's stick to the plan. We'll leave tomorrow. Jerome raised an eyebrow, surprised by her firmness. Understood, he replied. Would you like a briefing on the journey? I'm ready, she said. He explained that they would travel to Roham, Duke Taran's northern stronghold. The fastest route is through the gates. With good timing, we'll arrive in about 4 days. Lucia grew quiet at the mention of the gates. The gates, she repeated softly. They're the kingdom's greatest asset, Jerome said. Remnants of the ancient Mado civilization. They can transport objects and people great distances. Xenon has more gates than any other kingdom. They can't be moved, so the land itself grants us power. Have you used them before? He asked. No. It takes half a day to reach the capital gate. From there, we travel to the northern gate, then take a carriage to Roham. There are only 5 in the north, correct? Lucia asked. Jerome nodded. The closest one is still a few days from the estate. Lucia processed this silently. But not everyone can use the gates, right? She asked. I thought they were restricted to official use. That's true, Jerome said. But in the capital, they're accessible for a fee, and if the Duke wants to use them, no one will refuse. Lucia fell into thought. Last night's moments returned to her mind. She knew he held influence, but hadn't realized how far it stretched. Any other questions? Jerome asked. No, that was helpful, she replied. After a pause, he added, If you're still unwell, you should see a doctor. Lucia turned red, looking down. Yes, maybe that's best. That evening, Dr. Anna arrived at the manor. She had been called in the early morning and made to wait the entire day. They must think the world revolves around them, she muttered quietly as she followed the handmaiden. Still, she kept her thoughts to herself. The opportunity to treat a duchess was rare. When she entered the room, she was taken aback. Lucia wasn't the intimidating noblewoman she'd expected, but a soft-spoken young woman. She's just a girl, Anna thought as she greeted her. Lucia answered questions quietly, and Anna began her examination. Outside, Jerome waited. How is she? She'll be fine, just needs rest. Thank you. Dr. Anna, Jerome said. Would you consider becoming her personal physician? Anna paused. You said I wouldn't be stationed permanently in the north? You'll return in a couple of years, Jerome confirmed. She glanced back toward Lucia's room. All right, I'll do it. The next morning, the carriage was ready. Lucia approached, her handmaidens in tow. Jerome greeted her. You look better. I'm fine now. Thank you for checking on me, she said. I'll introduce you to your escort. The guard captain stepped forward. It's an honor, my lady. I'm the leader of your escort team. We'll ensure your safety at all times. Thank you. I feel safe, Lucia said sincerely. The captain advised her. In case of any danger, please stay close to Sir Hiva. Lucia blinked. Why him? Why not you? He's the most skilled knight among us, the man admitted. Then why isn't he the leader? The men went quiet. Sir Hiva stepped forward. Because I'm not of noble birth, my lady. Lucia's expression remained unreadable. So? He hesitated. I thought you might be uncomfortable. She tilted her head. You assumed I'd care about that? He lowered his gaze. I'd like Sir Hiva to lead, she said simply. Everyone was taken aback, but her tone left no room for argument. Social rank doesn't determine skill, she continued. I don't want to break any rules, but if he's the most capable, he should lead. The men exchanged glances before bowing. Yes, my lady. Jerome smirked. I wasn't sure how you'd do around knights. Seems I worried for nothing. Lucia smiled faintly. As they walked to the carriage, Jerome added, Sir Hiva was knighted without undergoing the usual training. That's rare. Isn't that only done for champions of fencing or horseback riding? Lucia asked, surprised. You're well informed, my lady. There's an explanation for that, she replied softly. As the carriage pulled away, Lucia looked out the window, her expression somber. Yes, she thought. There's an explanation. As night fell, the convoy stopped to make camp. Tents were pitched quietly, the guards moving efficiently in the fading light. Jerome approached Lucia's tent once everything was secured. My lady, he called softly. It's safe now. Would you like to step out for a bit? Lucia emerged, wrapped in a cloak, her expression subdued. Jerome watched her carefully. It's dark. Watch your step, he warned as she moved forward slowly. Lucia nodded. Thank you, Jerome. He noticed the pallor in her face. She looked tired, and though she hadn't complained once during the journey, it was clear the trip was wearing on her. Would you like some medicine? Anna asked gently, approaching from the side. Lucia paused. She had been wondering about Anna's presence, why a doctor had been summoned from the capital when the Taran family surely had one in the north. I'm just tired, Lucia said, declining the offer. Thank you, though. I didn't feel too ill on the road. Anna nodded, sensing her desire to be left alone. Lucia glanced toward the trees, then asked softly, Could we take a short walk? Anna agreed at once, though she kept a few paces behind, not wanting to intrude. As they walked slowly along the edge of the camp, Lucia's silence deepened. Her thoughts drifted, not to the present, but to fragments of dreams she remembered vividly. She had once run a small workshop that repaired weapons, mostly for wandering knights. Their stories had touched her in ways she couldn't forget. She had even fallen for one, a con artist, as it turned out. In the end, she'd lost the shop. But those memories stayed with her, warm despite the ache. In another dream, she'd worked as a maid in a noble household. Quiet work, humble. She had saved money, bought a small house, and lived alone at the edge of town. A peaceful, modest life. Looking up at the moonlit sky, Lucia breathed in the crisp night air. This place, this path, this life as a duchess was never one she thought she'd walk. I never imagined I'd come this far, she thought. Her gaze lingered on the stars, her hands clasped loosely before her. Anna watched from behind, hesitant. She was glad Lucia had asked for the walk, but there was something in her stillness that worried her. She seems far away, Anna thought. I can't talk to her like this. Neither of them spoke, and perhaps that silence, too, had its place. Two women under the same stars, walking through the quiet. For generations, the Northern Territory had remained under the firm control of the Taran family, known as the Northern Kings. They governed with such authority that even the monarch refrained from interfering. Though they never demanded independence, the Tarans ruled the North in their own right, steering clear of capital politics while remaining loyal subjects of the crown. 7 years ago, the former Duke Taran passed away, and his only son, Hugo, inherited both title and burden. Though young and untested in matters of governance, Hugo quickly earned national recognition for his performance on the battlefield. Yet his rise didn't earn him universal trust in the North. Among certain noble families, discontent began to simmer. They dismissed Hugo's military achievements as superficial and doubted his ability to govern. These lords, frustrated by years of restricted power under Taran rule, where they had little say over taxes or the lives of their tenants, began to see an opportunity. If they united, perhaps they could wrest control from the Tarans and reclaim what they saw as their rightful influence. Pooling their resources, they drafted a petition to the king demanding Duke Hugo's removal. It was signed by several houses and sent to the palace, but before it could become a matter of court deliberation, Duke Hugo responded with swift and brutal force. Afterward, the hall was littered with bodies. Count Brown, one of the conspirators, found himself pinned to the wall, trembling. Duke Hugo stood before him, blood on his sword, disappointment in his eyes. I haven't cut out your tongue yet, Hugo said coldly. Yes, sir. I am Brown. The count stammered. The Duke tossed the petition at his feet. During those 7 years, I was away fighting. You were preparing for this, Hugo said quietly, almost amused. Count Brown dropped to his knees, begging for mercy. The Duke only asked, Can't you think of anything else to say? With no response but more pleading, Hugo ended it with a clean stroke of his blade. Elsewhere in the estate, 2 handmaids stumbled through the garden, one still retching from the long carriage ride from the capital. The other gently patted her back. You all right? She asked. I'll live, came the weak reply. They spoke softly about their lady, Lucia, who hadn't once complained during the journey. Despite the fatigue, she remained calm and composed. It left an impression on the staff, who appreciated her gentleness. When someone offered to escort Lucia to her chambers, one of the handmaids remarked, She's being considerate of us. It makes it easy to serve someone like her. Inside the palace, Jerome approached her. The journey must have been tiring, my lady, he said with concern. It was, but I imagine it was hard for everyone, Lucia replied. She then asked him to ensure that the servants could rest. Jerome nodded. Of course, my lady. Your bath is being prepared. You may wait in your room. Lucia hesitated. Before that, I'd like to greet the Taran family. Jerome looked puzzled. There's no one else here. The former Duke and Duchess passed long ago. His Grace is the only one left. Lucia was startled. The only one? But he has a son. Jerome paused, uncertain. Lucia decided not to press, thinking there might be a reason for the secrecy. She let it go for now and agreed to tour the castle after her bath. While soaking in the bath, Lucia's thoughts returned to the mysterious child. Why hadn't she been told more? It seemed odd. Later, Jerome walked her through the mansion. He listed rooms and corridors with brief explanations. When they reached the back door, he mentioned the garden. Lucia's interest piqued, but Jerome warned it had been long neglected. Indeed, the garden was overgrown. Lucia asked, Was this ordered by the Duke? No, my lady, Jerome replied. He just doesn't mind things like this. Back inside, she stopped him. Jerome, the Duke's son. He does exist, doesn't he? Jerome feigned confusion, but Lucia pressed. I know he has a son. Why is no one telling me anything? Caught off guard, Jerome eventually admitted, yes, his name is Damian. He's 8. 8, Lucia echoed, surprised. She wondered how old the Duke must have been when he became a father. Is he away because of me? She asked. No, my lady. He was sent to boarding school a long time ago. He's never returned. Not even once. Lucia's thoughts spun. Why hadn't the Duke visited him? Jerome gently advised, if you have questions, it may be best to ask His Grace yourself. Over dinner, Jerome brought Lucia a pie. She smiled, grateful. Don't spoil your appetite, he warned gently. Lucia teased, can't I just eat pie for dinner? She enjoyed the meal, but worried aloud, if I keep eating like this, won't I burn through all the Duke's wealth? Jerome chuckled but said nothing. Lucia admired how kind everyone was to her and wondered if they were worried she'd feel out of place. Then she asked, Jerome, were you the one who sent those breakup roses? Jerome nearly dropped the teapot. Pardon? It wasn't the Duke, was it? He doesn't seem the type. After a moment, Jerome confessed, it was my idea. Yellow roses, they mean farewell. Lucia smiled. You must be a romantic. My sister-in-law runs a flower shop, he said. She taught me. Wait, you have a brother? Lucia asked. My twin, Fabian. He works for the master. She blinked. There are so many twins here. She laughed, but Jerome suddenly said, the Duke himself was also a twin. Lucia's smile faded. Oh, I didn't know. Jerome realized too late that he'd said too much. His brother passed away. Please don't mention it to His Grace. Lucia nodded. Of course. Elsewhere, Duke Hugo sat on his throne. Fabian burst in, exasperated. You can't kill them all again. There's no one left to run this place. Hugo was unmoved. I told you to bring workers from Roham. There aren't enough people. Then manage with what you have, Hugo said flatly. A knight entered. Your Excellency, we've captured Count Brown's son. The boy was thrown to the floor. He looked barely older than a page. The knight explained he had been raised to be a scapegoat. Hugo studied him. Leave him in charge of the estate. The room went silent. Truly? Fabian asked, stunned. Then the boy cried out, Kill me, please! Both men were caught off guard. Why? Hugo asked. I hate the blood in my veins, the boy said. Then live with it, Hugo replied. If you lack the courage to end your life, learn to carry it. In a flashback, 2 young boys, Hugo and Hugh, sat in the grass. What's your name? Hugh. Hugh, Hugo asked. No, Hugh. It means demon, the boy said flatly. Still, Hugo smiled. Then we're alike. I thought I was alone, but now I have a brother. You're too naive. One of us is going to die. I won't let that happen, Hugo promised. I'll protect you. You protect me, and I'll protect you, Hugh replied. Years later, that promise ended in tragedy. On a winter night, Hugh threw himself between Hugo and a blade. This is for you, he said. I love you. He died in Hugo's arms. Back in the present, Duke Hugo sat alone in court, thinking over everything. I'm tired of this, he muttered, head bowed. Meanwhile, Lucia stood before a locked tower. Why is this always closed? She asked a handmaid. They say it's haunted, the maid replied. Lucia didn't believe it. Then why? No one knows exactly. Just rumors. Later, she asked Jerome, what happened there? Jerome hesitated. There was a murder, a long time ago. The former Duke and Duchess. Lucia was shocked. Jerome told her everything he knew. The Duke had twin sons. One was kept as heir. The other was cast aside. He returned one day and killed them. Lucia was quiet. His Grace lived through all that? Yes, Jerome said. He's very strong. That night, Lucia sat awake, unable to read. I want to give him a hug, she thought. Would that annoy him? She didn't know, but she cared enough to ask the question. It rained lightly outside the castle. Lucia remained indoors, quietly sipping hot tea that Jerome had just served her. Has it already been a month? She wondered, staring into the rising steam from her cup. A month had passed since her marriage to Duke Hugo. She hadn't seen him since that day. The room was still. Boredom settled around her like the gray sky beyond the window. My lady, is there anything you'd like for dinner tonight? Jerome asked, his voice gentle, his smile faint. Anything is fine, Lucia replied softly, her usual response. The same as always, Jerome thought, watching her. How did someone so quiet and gentle become the lady of this house? He remembered his initial concerns upon hearing that a princess would marry into the Taran household. But over time, he had come to realize there was no reason to worry. A sudden clatter broke the quiet. Lucia flinched slightly at the sound of approaching carriages. "What's that?" she asked, turning to Jerome. He had moved toward the window, his expression tense. "The master has returned," he said finally, his tone stiff. Lucia stood up instinctively, startled, but Jerome stepped in gently. "My lady, there's no need to greet him outside," he said, kindly but firmly. Lucia looked at him, confused. "I only mean, it might be a shock," he added, pausing before continuing. "I wasn't able to explain much earlier, but the master's duties outside the castle were difficult this time. He's not always in the best state when he returns. He'll go straight to the bath first. It's better to see him after." Lucia nodded faintly. Still, questions ran through her mind. Why had he been gone so long? What exactly had happened in the territory? From snippets of conversation she'd overheard among the knights, she had gathered that someone had died. She suspected the Duke had been involved. Was it the native tribes again? The Northern Territory bordered their lands, and though the war had officially ended, tension lingered. Xenon had participated in the conflict, but the fighting hadn't reached her former home, so she never truly understood the extent of it. How could I have forgotten? She thought, remembering what she'd heard in the past. He's a ruthless soldier, known as the Black Lionel of the battlefield. Outside, Duke Hugo returned to his castle, walking with a composed yet commanding presence. "I'm glad to see you well, Your Excellency," Jerome greeted him, bowing as the staff lined up behind him. No matter how many times I see him, I'll never get used to that aura, Jerome thought. He feels like a different person entirely when he returns from war. "I've prepared a bath for you," Jerome informed him. Hugo paused. "Did anything happen?" "Nothing in particular. The lady has also been well. I asked her not to come out." "Well done. There will be a meeting in 1 hour," Hugo said, continuing down the hallway. Jerome bowed again. "Yes, Your Excellency." He could have delayed it. There's no emergency. Yet the first thing he asked about was her, Jerome thought. He never asks about her, not even once before. He remembered the Duke's command when Lucia first arrived. Treat her with respect. She is the Lady of Taran. So I wasn't reading too much into it after all, Jerome concluded. Then his thoughts turned. I wonder if Fabian's reached the capital by now. Too many people had died. Jerome knew Fabian would struggle to justify the loss before the king. He glanced toward the dining room, where Lucia sat quietly, barely touching her food. He must be busy, she thought, holding meetings the moment he returns, eating alone in the conference room. I didn't expect us to become close, but can't we at least have dinner together? The food isn't to your taste, my lady, Jerome asked, noticing her hesitation. No, it's delicious as always, Lucia replied. I'm just not very hungry tonight. Jerome watched her quietly. She never leaves her food unfinished. I'll be excused, Lucia said, rising from the table. Shall I prepare some tea? No, that's all right. I'll spend some time in the library instead. Later that evening, she sat in the quiet of the library, a finished book resting on her lap. It was a bit dull, but not bad overall, she mused. Maybe I'll read more from this author. She admired the Taran library. Its size always struck her, the shelves towering and well-organized. If I could design a library of my dreams, this would be it. She spotted another book she wanted, but it was just out of reach. Stretching, she tried to grab it. Here, a voice said from behind. Startled, she froze. Duke Hugo reached above her with ease and took the book down. I never thought I missed him, Lucia thought. But maybe I was waiting for him all along. Hugo handed her the book with one hand, the other resting lightly at her waist. Thank you, she said, stepping back quickly, hugging the book to her chest. Her heart raced. Surely he can't hear it? She struggled to find words. Is the meeting over? Or are they on a break? Should I say something? I would have come to see you sooner, Hugo said, breaking the silence. That's all right. You must have been busy. Is the meeting over? For today, Lucia nodded. The castle is so large, I still can't find my way around it. You'll only visit the places you need to. It gets easier, Hugo replied. She glanced down, avoiding his eyes. I heard you didn't finish dinner, he said. Was the food not to your liking? No, it was good. The chef did a wonderful job. I just didn't have much of an appetite. Did someone upset you? What? No, everyone has been very kind, she said quickly. He didn't respond. Reaching forward, he touched a strand of her hair, bringing it to his lips. "Look at me," he said quietly. Lucia hesitated, then slowly lifted her gaze to meet his. "Do you feel uncomfortable around me?" he asked. "No, just flustered," she admitted. "Why?" "I don't know. We've been apart for a month, and yet you seem completely at ease." "Are you nagging me for being gone?" Hugo asked, a faint smirk on his lips. "No, that's not what I meant," she said, flustered. "You're sure?" She couldn't help blushing. He released her hair, tilted her chin up, and kissed her. Lucia's fingers clenched around the book as his lips met hers. She felt his hand reach for the glass she was still holding and gently take it from her. "Do you enjoy drinking?" he asked. "A bit. Only on special occasions," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. He leaned in again, kissing her more slowly this time. His hand moved to her waist, anchoring her gently, and then slid upward, brushing against her chest. Lucia tensed, but she didn't pull away. Feeling her tremble slightly, he paused. "You're shaking." "I'm not scared," she murmured, barely audible. "Just nervous." "If you're this tense, you won't enjoy it," he said quietly, "and it might hurt again." Lucia gave a small nod, not saying anything. Hugo wrapped his arms around her and lifted her without warning. She let out a small gasp, startled but silent. He carried her to a room adjacent to the library, one she hadn't noticed before. There was a modest bed tucked away behind a partition. "There's a bedroom in the library?" Lucia thought in surprise. He laid her down gently. She didn't resist, only looked at him, unsure of what to expect. When he joined her on the bed, he didn't move immediately. He simply held her. His warmth seeped into her slowly, calming her heartbeat. His touch is gentle, she realized. "I'm not trembling as much anymore." Hugo stayed silent. He looked up at the ceiling briefly, as though thinking. "I should have held back that night," he thought. "She probably thinks I'm nothing but cruel." He glanced down at her, small, delicate, yet composed in her own way. Her earlier trembling had surprised him. He had imagined her to be braver, perhaps even a little fearless. He hadn't expected to care about how she felt. Still holding her, he made no move to rush. Lucia stayed in his arms, confused. "Is he not going to do it?" she wondered. "Did I do something wrong? Maybe it's because I refused him before. Or maybe I'm just not attractive enough for him to want it." She squeezed her hands together and nudged him gently. "Hey, you're not asleep, are you?" she asked cautiously. "I'm not doing this to put you to sleep," Hugo replied, his tone low. Lucia glanced at him. "Are you tired?" "I'm fine, but you've had a long day too." "You must be more tired. You returned and immediately went into meetings," she said. "I'm not tired at all," he said. Then he looked at her. "I want to hold you. But do you want me?" "What?" she asked, startled. "I'm saying I want to do it, but only if you want to." His hand brushed her cheek lightly. Lucia was quiet for a moment, staring at his eyes. "Was it that bad the first time?" he asked gently. She bit her lip. "Well," she hesitated. "You said it would hurt a little, but it hurt a lot." Hugo's expression shifted. He looked regretful. "Then give me a chance to make up for it," he said, taking her hand and guiding it to his face. He kissed her palm. "Do you plan to never let me touch you again?" he asked. Lucia blushed, hiding her mouth with her other hand. She let out a soft laugh. "Hugo," she said quietly, testing the name aloud. "That depends on how it goes tonight." His expression softened, then broke into a rare smile. "You really know how to tease." He took his time this time, his movements slow, deliberate, thoughtful. He kissed her neck gently, as if learning her again from the beginning. Beneath the sheets, they found their rhythm, hands clasped, eyes half closed. "It doesn't hurt, right?" he asked between breaths, careful with every movement. Lucia didn't speak. She only nodded slightly, eyes closed. Letting the warmth of the moment speak for her, she felt something she hadn't before. Ease. "If it ever becomes too much, just tell me. I'll go slow," he whispered. She didn't need to say anything. Her silence this time was not fear. It was trust. At one point, she let out a soft gasp. "Wait." Hugo stopped immediately, alarmed. "Did I hurt you?" Lucia hesitated, then reached up and touched her hair. It had become tangled between them. "Oh." Hugo smiled, exhaling. "This." He gently brushed it away from her face. The next morning, sunlight filtered softly into the room. Lucia stirred under the covers. Her limbs ached slightly, but it wasn't unpleasant. Her head turned slowly, feeling the steady warmth of Hugo beside her. I fell asleep without realizing, she thought, blinking at the bright morning light. Before she could move, she felt Hugo's arms tighten slightly around her. Then, his lips pressed softly against the back of her neck. She inhaled sharply, a quiet moan escaping her lips. "Your Excellency," she whispered, her voice sleepy. "My name," Hugo murmured against her skin, tone low and teasing. "Hugo," she corrected softly, blushing. "Let me go," she added faintly, though her voice lacked conviction. "I don't want to," he said, and resumed what he started. Every morning, Lucia woke late and was dressed by her handmaidens. She had breakfast alone, often dozing off afterward. Before long, it was time for lunch. She would take a walk or read a book, and then it was time for dinner. Duke Hugo sometimes ate breakfast or lunch on his own, but he always joined her for dinner. After bathing at night, she would spend the night with him and fall asleep, exhausted. Then morning would come again. This had been Lucia's routine. "I feel listless," she murmured one morning. It had been a month since Duke Hugo arrived at the castle. He came to her bed every night, relentless. Because of that, the people around her treated her with great care. Her handmaidens flustered at the sight of her. "I guess there's no greater power than a husband's affection," she thought. Spending time with the Duke each day made her less embarrassed when her handmaidens brought her dresses late. "I suppose that's progress," she admitted quietly. She knew she could refuse him if she wanted to. He would stop if she said so, but even though she was always tired, she didn't dislike it. It would be a lie to say, "I don't want him every night," she confessed inwardly. One morning, she looked out the window at the unkept garden. "Should I try gardening?" she wondered. "It's not like I have anything else to do." Her body had adjusted. She no longer slept until noon. In her dreams, she had worked for every meal. Resting like this felt foreign. Even as a countess, I had duties and social events. Now, with nothing to do, how am I supposed to fill my days? She had heard noblewomen spent time arranging flowers or embroidering, but Lucia had never learned such things. As the 16th princess raised in a forgotten castle, no one had taught her anything. She only knew how to read and take walks. "My lady," Jerome greeted, smiling as he handed her an envelope. Lucia opened it. "An internal budget?" "Yes, my lady," Jerome replied. It wasn't previously managed, so it took some time to prepare. He explained that basic operational expenses had been covered by other budgets. This one was for her alone. "This budget is entirely up to you to plan." Lucia raised a brow. "But aren't internal budgets usually for salaries and basic household management?" "Yes, traditionally. But this one is separate. Its purpose is for you to decide. As long as you stay within the amount, you may use it however you wish." "So it's called an internal budget, but it's essentially mine," she thought. The amount was substantial. Lucia understood that her idle days were over. She would need to show results. Responsibility came with privilege. That night, she told Duke Hugo about her plan for the garden. "The garden?" he asked. "Yes. Didn't you say you didn't want any flowers planted there? So I wanted to ask if I may manage it?" "The garden falls under the lady's authority," he replied. "Do as you like." Lucia continued, "We'll need someone to design and plan it. Many workers will be needed at first, so there'll be people coming and going. I just thought to warn you." "Do you need more funds?" he asked, still walking toward the bed. "What?" Lucia blinked. "I could increase your budget slightly, but this year's budget is already finalized. I allotted as much as I could." "No, it's more than enough," she quickly replied. She had thought he handed out money easily because he was a duke, but clearly he had gone to some trouble. It was far more than what she ever received from Count Matin. The head of the house decided the internal budget's size. If a marriage was good, the budget grew. If not, the first sign of withdrawal was a reduced budget. "If I think about it that way," she mused, "then the Duke must be satisfied with me." "I only brought it up because I didn't want you to be annoyed by the workers," she added, lowering her eyes. She had never tended a garden before. Count Matin had thought it wasteful. She wondered if the Duke would object too. "I told you the garden is under your control. People come and go in Roham every day. A few dozen more won't matter," he said. "You could cut down all the trees, make a pond, whatever you like. You don't need to ask me." Lucia looked at him, unsure. I don't know what I can do freely and what needs permission." Lying beside her, he asked, "How far can you go?" Lucia flushed. Was he teasing her again? Still, she was honest. I wasn't educated properly. I don't know what a duchess should or shouldn't do. That's why I want to learn, but I don't want to get greedy. She understood that wealth and honor were guaranteed as long as she remained duchess. That was enough. You mean you need a teacher, the Duke said thoughtfully. He realized to his shame that he should have considered this earlier. The Taran household had no elders to guide her, and she had no family of her own. Of course she lacked guidance. I'll look into it, he said. Lucia smiled with relief. Thank you. Seeing her smile made Duke Hugo uneasy. This is bad. I've become an animal ruled by instinct, he thought. Vivian, he said lowly. Who? She gasped as he moved swiftly. The bed creaked as he pressed into her again. Whenever she called his name, his mind went blank. Blue. That's what it felt like. Do you like it here? He asked midway. What? She breathed between moans. Have you gotten used to living here? Yes. Don't get too used to it. When the territory is settled, we'll return to the capital. The capital? She asked, startled. She remembered. Next year, her father would die. Her brother, the crown prince, would become king. Duke Hugo would be called to the capital whether he wanted to or not. Her peaceful life in the north would end. Lucia was deep in thought when the Duke tilted her chin up. So, you have the leisure to think now? He said. Wait. But he didn't stop. She gave in to the moment again. Later, over dinner, he informed her, Countess Corzin will be coming tomorrow. Lucia was puzzled. Should I prepare to host a guest? She's the teacher you asked for. Whether she's a guest is up to you. I see, Lucia said, hiding her surprise. He really is unfriendly sometimes, she thought. Duke Hugo noticed her expression. Countess Corzin is Count Corzin's mother, technically the former countess. She raised the count and managed the house herself. She's highly respected in the north. She sounds amazing, Lucia said. Wasn't it sudden to ask someone like that? She must be very busy. The Duke hesitated, glancing at Jerome. Jerome flinched. He and the handmaidens quickly excused themselves. Lucia frowned. Why is everyone leaving? It's not easy to make her do anything. Not even for me, Hugo said. Then how did you get her to come? He smirked. I worked for it. Lucia blinked. Thank you. He raised an eyebrow. Only words. Lucia blushed, gave him a quick kiss. That's all. He kissed her back longer this time until she was breathless. He lifted her onto the table. Who? She yelped. You're not thinking of doing it here, are you? I wasn't, he paused. Why not? No, she said, red-faced. Convince me, he teased. This is where we eat. He chuckled. Then what about the hallway or the garden? Of course not. Why not? People might see us. If no one's around, is it okay then? That seems fine, she stammered. We've already done everything in bed. We're married after all, she reasoned. The Duke watched her, stunned. She's actually considering it. Now I really want to. He took a breath, trying to compose himself. Think holy thoughts. Think holy thoughts. Anyway, not here, Lucy insisted. He grinned and gave in. You're going for a walk now, right? Yes. Shall I join you? Lucia looked delighted. Okay. He noted her reaction. If I'd known she'd be this happy, I'd have asked earlier.
Thank you for watching this episode of our Manhwa Recap. We hope you enjoyed diving into the world of this story with us. If you loved the content, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. Your support means the world to us and helps us bring you even more amazing Manhwa recaps. See you in the next episode.